Live, my friend Luke. This is episode number 17. This is episode number 17. This is the first episode of the year 2023. And we haven't been doing this for the last couple of weeks just because of the holidays. We'll probably fix that next year and we'll make sure that we account for that. But I think 17, we have been consistent from day one all the way to now. Over the course, we're in week 17. It's probably taken us 21 weeks, maybe. I think maybe we've missed one or maybe 3 or 4 weeks. But I think that's a good point to bring that, it's always about being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Because our first episode wasn't that great.
Progress over perfection, right?
Progress over perfection. So, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
So today we decided that we were going to talk about how to modern day lead generate. And I think that this is a really important topic, especially given where the current economic time is right now. I have not found a real estate market that has not contracted at least by 50% or around there. Mm-hmm. So I think as you and I have come up in sales, and we've said this all the time, is that lead generation solves all problems. But I think in the real estate and in the mortgage industry, everybody is still being taught the same things that have been taught for the last 50, 60, 70 years. And that is to door knock, that is to cold call, that is to harass your friends and family. And while that is effective, I think I got this from you, is that the problem with that is that it does work. I think I got that from you. While that is effective, it's not efficient. And you're pushing more people away than you're actually finding. So I think that's what we were going to decided that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So and that's one of those things. Like it doesn't cost anything for the business to teach their new recruits that, and I think it's probably a big reason why there's such high attrition in the industry itself. It's like, hey, go do all this stuff that doesn't cost us anything. And it does work, but it takes a lot of freaking effort. So,
and the interesting thing with that is that, yes, it doesn't cost any dollars or cents, but what they're doing is they're getting labor out of it.
Yeah.
They're getting, which is time, which is the most expensive commodity that anybody has.
Right.
And if that's the case, why not put your effort, your time into something that is going to give you a higher rate of return? Not saying that you don't need to prospect, because I think you and I will agree on this, is that if you are a professional that does not have the funds to actually invest in a consistent source of lead gen, the only other option you have is investing your time. That's the only other. That's what you have to do. And that's what most people. That's what you and I had to do when we started out, and that's what most people have to do starting out.
And I think to some degree, there's always still a good, healthy amount of that, but doing it strategically and a little bit more, with more intention rather than just, hey, I'm going to, cold call for 3 hours a day. Right. That's grinding,
It's grinding.
But if you're calling, a specific set of like referral partners or something, like doing cold outreach that way, where you have more leverage built in, then so just being a little bit more intentional about it. And I can actually touch on a couple cool things in regards to that I was going over this morning in the greater context of the lead generation that we're talking about, like implementing in modern times.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's start at step number 1. So our thought is that we're going to talk about the strategy today, and then next week we're going to walk you through the implementation of it. So step 1 that I find is that real estate agents and loan officers, they tend to try to be everything to everybody everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so step 1 is to become very, very clear on who your target market is, who your target audience is. Would you say that's number 1?
Yes. So, if you're So sometimes, I mean, here's something to add on to that. So like absolutely, like niching down or having a specific goal, um, in the context of a campaign. So for example, like right now, um, like refinances, it's not like if that was your niche, like I'm refinancing existing homeowners, like there's no business there, right? So
None.
how do we reinvent ourselves? So, and I share that with the context of like we've been just absolutely murdering it with HELOC campaigns recently because people have tons of equity in their
And
homes.
they have tons of debt
Times are a little
and
bit
tons of bills that
hard,
are up to coming due.
right? And the bills are coming
Yeah.
due. And this is, I mean, it's shooting fish in a barrel right now. Like these people are just, I mean, I've never seen conversion rates as high as we're seeing right now. So like niching down is important, but also being able to know when to pivot in with and how to pivot if that, if that's what's needed.
Yeah. The traditional refinance business is I mean, it's practically gone.
Yeah.
So we're at north of 6% interest rates. People are locked into a 3. I mean, they're not going to refinance out into another one. They will
Yeah.
probably
No,
sell before they do that.
nobody wants to get rid of those 2021 rates that they
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
locked in.
Number two that as I think about this, well, this is probably not an action step. It's more of a strategic play. And
Hmm.
once you identify who your target audience is, um, I always share with the people that I talk to in real estate is that I'm going to share with you a starting of target audience. They are people who own a home. They live in your primary market area. Your primary market area, the center point is typically where you live and go
Yeah.
out 3 or 5 miles, and they want to sell it. That's a good starting point. Another way to say that is that they want to buy a home in your market area um, fast, like now. So that's a good start to it. But I also want to premise is that statistically, people want to work with people who they know, like, and trust. So
Hmm.
I think step number two, and it's not really necessarily a step as much as an underlying need to do something,
Hmm.
is you need to become that attractive character that your ideal client is going to like. And you have to build out content digitally because we know that more than 95% of all consumers go to the internet for information. You have to be able to start creating content so people can start to get to know you, like you, and trust you. So you're building authority. So
Right.
I would say before you do anything, that needs to be an underlying foundational item because that's what's going to help you get those come list me calls, those come buy me calls, or come sell me a house calls, or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah. So there, I was touching on this the other day. It's like there's three main things or three things that you have a lot of control over: your brand, your sales process, and your expectations. Brand, and that's, the brand falls in line with what you're talking about there. Some of the things that and we've actually moved this up in our like onboarding cycle with a lot of our clients, is creating um creating custom audiences where for retargeting purposes, where we can do more branding, more know, like, and trust things into the greater into a strategy where when somebody does click on you, maybe it is a colder lead. Internet leads are cold, right? Like unless they come in through like YouTube, let's be real, it's a cold lead. They clicked on something, they expressed interest, but we still need to get them to do that, go through that experience of that know, like, and trust. And how do we do that? How do we manufacture that too on our end, or how do we craft those people and lead them down that journey? So creating those custom audiences is a great way where you can stay in front of them with a very small budget. Also, something that I was just helping somebody or walking through somebody else this morning. Um, after a lead submits their information, we're just doing really short form name, number, and email, just basic information. We're putting them directly over to a mini video sales letter. So this is like a 3 to 4 minute video
Okay.
of the person just introducing themselves. Hey, so and so, I'm, this is my name, a little bit about me, with a couple reviews or links to reviews out underneath them, and then a couple options of like filling out an application or scheduling a call. So it's really nice and simple, but it leads them right down that path of like, hey, here's who I am, a little bit about me, here's a little bit of social proof of reviews, and start to create that process for those folks.
Well, and that ties in very good with an episode that we did a few episodes back about how we talked about the tools that we use in our systems.
Mm-hmm.
Because in 2023, you're going to need to use technology. It's not just a CRM anymore. You need to have the capability of texting, on emailing, on tracking, on being able to have somebody hit a page and retarget that and put a message in front of them. These are the tools. I mean, we couldn't do this 25 years ago. I mean, neither could Amazon because they didn't exist. But Amazon is a good example of once you go and hit a pair of shoes, you see shoes pop up all over the place. That's a good example of retargeting.
Yeah.
So I think those are foundational things that need to be done. Let's call them foundational assets, because it's building out that content. And really what we're doing is we're tying into modern consumer behavior. We know that if somebody's looking to buy or sell a real estate, get a mortgage, buy shoes, go to a restaurant, go to the grocery store, get a car, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
Their first step is going to be searching it in their little supercomputer that we all have in our pockets. So we want to make sure that you have those foundational assets that you can now use to allow people to get to know you, like you, and trust you. Look, everybody has had insomnia, watching YouTube, hit a page, and then all of a sudden you went down the rabbit hole. Right. And it's like 5 a.m. So that happens to everybody. We just need to make sure that you can utilize that strategically in your business to generate leads. So we went to step 1, identify your audience, but then we went to foundational stuff on what you need to do. So maybe that should have been step 0. But now step 2 is you've got to come up with a deliverable. You've just like, that if you had a mouse, you go get some cheese, that will attract the mouse. This might be a bad analogy, but now that you know who your target audience is, what can you create as a deliverable that you could say, hey, target audience, I'm going to trade you this if you trade me your contact information.
Right.
And you're really good at this, Luke. So I'll let you kind of give more examples on what you've done.
So, I mean, just this morning, again, working with another client, we helped frame out and build a course, a membership area on how to buy a new home.
Oh,
right. And it was like,
that's not relevant for this video.
Checklist, like, yeah. And it was, so that in and of itself, I mean, you have a contained environment where you can nurture people through, you're educating them. They're not getting distracted by other YouTube videos too. So that's a perfect example of giving them something. Hey, here's all of your questions that you could possibly have in an organized fashion. You don't have to go looking around for them. And I'm actually going to walk you through step by step each individual one. We even got into like components of like having them take a little survey or like a little test to make sure that they retain the information or it made sense. But there's a number of different ways you can go around it. Simple PDF downloads, but that was something that was really cool. That was this person really wanted to, they have that like teacher, in them where they wanted to do that. And that's an asset that's like, that's a massive asset that they can continue to reuse, and they only have to make it once, right? Unless something dramatically changes with that process, which, let's be
Pretty
real,
sure the
it's
process is set in its way.
yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any
So
different way of selling a house.
that's a massive asset that they'll have to be able to use, almost indefinitely.
Yeah. So, but you used an idea of an online course. But what if they created something like a free report, how to
Yeah.
sell your home for top dollar in a shifting, high interest rate, high inflationary environment, and net the most money? Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
That would only appeal to a home seller. That would only
Right.
and a home seller that's looking to sell now. Now we know that other real estate agents are going to be curious and they're going to click on it and stuff and they're going to do so. It'd be appealing to them. You're always going to catch something in the net that you don't want. You just pluck them out and throw them back in the ocean. But and if you want to get more hyper local, you can add the city into it. How to sell your, I live in Irvine, California home for the most money, for quick and for the most money, even in a high inflationary, high interest rate, declining market, etc. And so that title itself, when you market that to somebody, that is, and let's be clear, I always talk about your day, and Luke shares it with me because we've been friends for a lot of years. Your number one reason, and any salesperson's number one focus, is lead generation, looking for now business. The number two is nurturing and conversion. Converting, if find now business, what I define as 30 days, anything other than that goes into a nurturing and a conversion mode from there on after. That's how you fill your pipeline. And that's what we're talking about here is you identify who you're going to talk to. You have this foundation of assets built. You come up with a deliverable that you could trade something of value for their contact information. And that's how you get your lead. Now,
so something that came to mind in this, and because you're talking sellers in this, and I'm talking buyers, and so the way I try to explain this to everybody is just continuity. You don't just have to have this one thing, but you can have multiple pillars, right? So, when we're talking about niching down and picking our lane, getting that niche and that lane or that lead magnet going, but having continuity. So what I mean by continuity is, does your ad match the lead magnet? Does your emails, where it's all the same all the way through? And that really, really helps like reinforce that and increase conversion.
well, that goes with what you said with branding as well.
Yeah, totally.
And to add on to that is, you can have a seller report. You can have your how to buy a home course. You can have how to buy a home free report. You can have a free checklist of how to buy a home. There's all these different things that you probably already have. You've probably already created in email somewhere. I know that if you've been in real estate for longer than maybe a week, you've already been asked, how's the market, or how do you buy a home, or how do you get this? You already have that information. You just need to turn it into a deliverable, an asset that you can trade, that you can barter contact information for. One of the things I want to share about what you've done, Luke, is when you were generating mortgage leads, you had this long form questionnaire. It was like 10 questions. They were practically pre-qualified by the time they finished this questionnaire. Yeah. But the amazing thing is the quality, you didn't get massive leads, but man, the ones that you got, they were quality leads.
Right.
And what were you paying for those? I can't remember. What was like the most you ended up paying for on a campaign with that?
It depends. They've obviously CPMs have gone up over the years, but actually, surprisingly, right now they're just absolutely insanely amazing.
Like insanely amazing, like cheaper.
Good.
Well,
like
probably
really
because Facebook everybody's taking a dump because people are contracting their marketing dollars.
Right. So we're able to pick up some pretty good pricing on things, but So, generally speaking, I mean, you're still able to get those like high quality long forms from, 5 to 10 bucks a piece. Some of the times when we were like niching down and we're saying like, hey, I only want like VA buyers for this, some of those you're talking, $10, $15, but that's like exclusive, highly qualified,
Wow, that's amazing.
versus like, yeah,
Average sales
it's
price
crazy.
Orange County is like 900,000. So you're getting
Hmm.
a $25,000, $30,000 check. If you get $15 per lead,
Yeah.
and let's say that you're not really good and you're only converting 1 out of 10, you're into it $150 to get to equals 25, 30,000. I mean, that's very simple math. I mean, there's a lot of more things that go into it than that, but
Hmm.
um, you get one deal off of it. You've paid for that whole campaign for like a few different years.
Yeah. And then and that's something that's like, this is probably one of the most important things when it comes to marketing online. Is marketing is math, and it is knowing those metrics and being able to like stay focused on those metrics when you're doing things, is really, a key component to being successful. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about managing your expectations. So if you have a clear set of expectations coming in, like internet leads, like generally speaking, like I usually, and you mentioned like a 10%. Usually I try to say, hey, like 1 out of 20 leads, is going to be the person that you're going to want to talk to,
Okay.
right? And
So
and
you're into
not
it $300.
yeah, and not trying to worry about the other 19, right? I'm just building my database, and when I get that 1 out of 20, I'm going to focus on that one and not get caught up with the other 19 that you may not want to work with right now, or they may not be ready, or they're just early on in the
Sure.
buying process. They're not ready to answer a phone call. They're not ready to respond to your text messages. Maybe they didn't even enter in their correct phone number. They gave you a bogus phone number, but they gave you their real email,
Because they have
right?
to, because otherwise they're not going to get their free stuff.
Right. They still want to go down that journey, right? And they still want to start. We all have our spam emails. We all have our process of entering in, a fake number, um, to start that journey. So that is,
I got my fake
but
name. I got my fake number. I got my fake email address.
everybody does, right?
Yeah, everybody does. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Let's be real and
Yeah.
like and call it what it is. And it's really cool to watch this over time. And I can speak to this directly, is with the platform that I'll use, like I'll see people's journey. Like they'll start out with their fake email, or with their bogus spam email, and then not a real number. But then they'll come back, and then they'll enter in their Yahoo, and then they go on further, and now it's their business email, and you're like, oh, yep, you can see them coming along. So
Yeah.
but that's important to know, that's what's, I mean, we know that, like, let's not beat her. It's not a shitty lead. It's not a bogus lead, right?
No,
They're just not ready to
they're just not
commit
ready.
to
They,
whatever
they're,
you're
they're in the
doing.
process of getting to know you. They're in their
Yeah.
discovery period. And one thing that we know about human behavior is before they're ready to talk to you, they've got to check you out. They got to feel right
Mhm.
about it. They've got to know who you are, what you do, and I would even argue what you cost.
Yeah.
So, because that's all about the pre-qualifying. We want people who are just ready, willing, and wanting to be what we call laydowns. They just call you up and you just get the deal.
Right.
You've got to educate them. You've got to allow them to get to know you, like you, trust you, and educate them on the way that you do business, because either those answers are getting answered now, or you're going to think that you're going to be that good of a salesperson to do it at the kitchen table. And I don't think anyone is. You know who the best people are that would actually benefit from this? Are the people who are the diehard traditional sales activities, the diehard prospectors, the diehard door knockers. The reason why is because they're going to do what they're going to do, and this is just going to supplement it, because their closing skills are amazing. They add this to that already that business, to whereas instead of looking for business, business is on autopilot popping in and they're just doing the same activity. Where I find the hardest people are the opposite. They don't want to do the calls. They don't want to,
Yeah.
they don't feel comfortable because now they're generating these leads. And I think you and I had a conversation that it's not the problem getting the generating leads, it's getting the people to call them and to follow up with them.
Which doesn't seem like it should be a problem, but we all get busy. Like, it's like it's lead comes in at 9 p.m. at night, or 7 o'clock, you're sitting down with your family. Like, you're not going to want to try to call that person right then, right?
Yep.
So it's like people always say, well, I'm going to call my leads. You're like, yeah, but you're like, until you don't, like, until you get busy or until you're trying to put out a fire.
It's always going to be that next
deal you have is falling apart, and you got to try to, button it up. Like, you're putting everything
which transitions very well into the next point, is that you've got to have automation. You've got to have automation. You've got to have a monthly deliverable, like maybe an e-newsletter. I encourage a physical newsletter, depending on who the person is. But you have to create content. You have to create not content like, hey, this is what I'm eating today, but you have to actually create content that your target market would find interesting, and you've got to drip on them. And that's how you're going to do it. And that's how you're going to let them nurture into things. You know that if they downloaded your free report on how to sell your home for top dollar in a declining market, that chances are they want to know more stuff about the market, about how to sell the home, about that process. So you could create a 3-month program with emails that go out once a week that just nurtures that. You can throw in phone calls and such like that if you get their number and so on and so forth, but you've got to move along the natural behavior of people wanting information and the type of information that they want, and help them out and allowing them to get to know you. Worst case scenario, if you find out that they don't like who you are, which is fine, and you don't waste time trying to sell somebody who doesn't like you and doesn't want what you want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most people will self-select, right out of the gate. And
True.
The ones that don't respond, like, they're not your cup of tea, and that's totally okay, right?
You don't want to work with someone who always wears a suit and tie. You don't want to work with me.
Right.
Luke's known me for a lot of years. How many times in a business environment have you seen me dressed down?
Right. I don't think I've ever seen. That's just the
way it is. And I'm okay with that. If people don't want to work with somebody like me, I'm perfectly fine with that, because the focus is always trying to find people I want to work with, and people who I don't want to work with are the ones who don't want to work with me.
Right.
And I'm okay with that.
It's funny. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, we got to come up with a name for our show. And I was thinking out loud. I'm like, the suit and the sweats, like, because I'm I'm all about that sweatpant life, right?
I kind of like the Luke and Brett show.
Yeah.
But I like suit and sweats too. But then, in the off chance that I might be in a place where I wouldn't be, that puts that undue pressure on it.
Yeah, right.
So look, we're at time. So we just mapped out the whole strategy for everyone. Identify your target market. Make sure that you have a foundation of assets. Create them. Go to your office. Find them. Find something. And then just walk through that whole theory. Make it a deliverable. Trade them information. You're going to want a landing page. Go back to our video where we show the top technologies we use. Have an email system. Set up the nurturing. In fact, next week we talked about this. We will kind of walk through a basic way of doing this with the systems that we use. And don't just watch, go out and do.
Absolutely.
And break some eggs.
And if there's any specific examples or ideas that anybody, that if you're catching this and you want to walk through a specific example, we can.
Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Certainly happy to do that too.
Yeah, that'd be nice. So we don't have to make up an example. Someone just gives us one and we just walk through it. That'd be perfect. Okay, so we're at time. We're at 20 right here at 30 minutes. So thank you all for watching. Be sure to tune in next week.
Rock and roll.